I'm Shakur Brown. I'm interviewing Anthony Stillwagon for my oral history. Anthony, tell me something about yourself.
I'm a freshman at Malone. I am a business administration and sports management major with a minor in coaching. I also play baseball here.
Um, okay, so what was it like for you to grow up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then move to Canton, Ohio?
Growing up in Pittsburgh was great for me. I got a little bit of taste of city life and living in the suburbs. My mom living in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, and my dad living in the South Hills. So I got to see what it's like growing up in the suburbs, but both my parents also worked a little bit in the city, so I got to go down there a lot and see a lot of the city, different big events down there, like New Year's and light up night in the city. I would go down to my mom's office and sit up in the PPG Tower, which is the big pointed building in PPG's skyline, and watch the fireworks out of her window. So, I mean, I spent a lot of time in the city and outside, and it's just a really neat place to grow up. There's a lot of different aspects of growing up there.
What was your favorite thing about Pittsburgh?
Probably going to Pirate games or Penguin games. We were season ticket holders for both teams. Going there and seeing each team play, because sports is a big thing in my life, so I like to watch them play sports.
So, just give me a second. So what's the difference between like Canton and Pittsburgh to you? Like, was it a big move? Was it a big difference to you when you moved here? Does it kind of feel like the same thing?
Well, it's only an hour and 45 minutes away from home, but it's really not that much different. Not so much of a city feel or a suburb feel to it, which I'm more used to. But overall, I mean, it still feels the same, especially just being away at college for my first year. The best way I can really describe it is it just felt like a long summer camp where pretty much you do whatever you want, and every now and again there's something structured you have to go to. So, but yeah, Canton isn't really much different than Pittsburgh, based off of the distance-wise and just how it feels around the city and stuff.
So I did some research on Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Gazette, it says first newspaper west of the Alleghenies, and I know you grew up in North Allegheny, so what is that all about?
So Pittsburgh is in Allegheny County, and I grew up in North Allegheny school district, and all around Allegheny County there's just different schools. There's West Allegheny, South Allegheny, and it's just our county that we live in, and that's what Allegheny pretty much is.
A lot of people from Pittsburgh represent themselves as Steeler fans. What is your view on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I absolutely hate the Steelers.
Why is that?
Living in the city and growing up in Pittsburgh, everybody is huge Steeler fans. My parents weren't really big into sports, so they never really liked the Steelers. So I never really grew up a Steelers fan. And also, when you listen to a Steelers broadcast every single Sunday, the people are just absolutely nauseating, especially the Yinzers, which are like hometown Pittsburgh people with like their little accents, and like everything about the Steelers is so great, but after they lose, it is like so annoying because they are just like, fire him, fire this guy, and it is the most annoying thing ever, and I just cannot stand the Steelers or any of their players, to be honest.
Heinz Field, what should be their field? Do you have is Heinz ketchup, is that like a big thing around there since it was invented?
Yeah, Heinz is absolutely huge. It is, I really won't even have any other ketchup besides Heinz. Like, you go across the country and you'll see the Heinz bottle, and you're just immediately like, that's Pittsburgh right there. Like, there's a few things that represent Pittsburgh, and like that you see it and you're like, wow, that's like Pittsburgh. And the Heinz ketchup bottle, or just their logo in general, is Pittsburgh. Like, it's a big deal in where I'm from.
So I know you're a big Pirates fan since you are a baseball fan, but what about the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I love the Penguins. My family, we have season tickets to the Penguins since 2000. So I've been to games in the Mellon Arena, which is where they originally played. I saw them growing up, and they were just absolutely awful, and going through their time where they were looking to sell the team and move, and they drafted Sidney Crosby, which was one of the biggest things to come to the city, and he really helped them move forward as a franchise. And just watching them become the team they are today, I was there in 2007 when they lost the Stanley Cup to Detroit at home. That was probably a very tough time to watch them lose that. But again, I was there for Game 6 in 2008 when they beat Detroit to go into Game 7, and that was one of the most exciting moments of my life, to be in the Mellon Arena watching them win that game, and the crowd, and just how everybody was just so on edge to see them win. And then also in 2008 when they won the Cup at Detroit, I was there for that game. We traveled to see them win the Stanley Cup, and that was a really big moment for me. But yeah, I've seen the Penguins come a far way from being a joke of the NHL to being at the top, and I love watching the Penguins play.
Okay, so something about Pittsburgh history that I found out was that it's an industrial hub for coal mining and steel production. Does that play any part in your life, or have you just like not even noticed anything about that?
It hasn't really played a big part in my life. I don't really know any family members that were coal miners or steel workers, but it plays a big factor in the city, especially steel. We learned at a very young age in Pittsburgh public schools that, steel basically pretty much built our city, and how important it was, and like the environmental issues that the city went through growing up. There was a lot of pollution, and we would always learn that when people would do their laundry, they would hang their whites outside on clotheslines, and by the time they got back from work, their whites would be completely covered black in soot. So, I mean, we learn a lot about the steel, and there are some steel mills still around Pittsburgh that are abandoned, but you still notice the history of steel around our area a lot.
Do you ever go underground, like the Pittsburgh subway and stuff? Like, is that when you go into the city? Have you ever been on the subway, or you just mostly drive around?
Yeah, I've been on the subway. We call it the T in Pittsburgh. Not really so much of a subway. Most of it is above ground. It goes. I know. There's a T pickup spot right near my dad's work in Castle Shannon that I've taken all the way down to downtown to go see different sporting events and whatnot. But recently they did build a part of the T that goes underneath the rivers, and it connects Station Square to the north side, which Station Square is where like a bunch of different food and bar places are, and it connects it to the north side, where Heinz Field and PNC Park are at. But yeah, I've ridden the subway a lot.
USA Today, or USA Weekend, voted Mount Washington one of the top 10 most beautiful views in the country. Have you ever been to Mount Washington?
Yeah, I've been to Mount Washington a few times. It is one of the most photographed places, like where people go take pictures of the skyline in the city, to where people get their pictures. We have the incline, which goes up to Mount Washington, which is like this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like one of those things at like a ski resort that takes you up the big hills. I think like the bungalows or whatever. But this is like an enclosed cart that takes you up, and halfway, the other car that goes down meets yours, and it takes you up the mountain. And you can take it down, and that's a really neat experience to go up Mount Washington. But I've been there a few times. We took our prom pictures at Mount Washington. That's like a really big thing for pretty much every school around Pittsburgh that has prom. You'll go to Mount Washington and take your pictures up there. So yeah, Mount Washington's a really cool spot in Pittsburgh.
Why is Pittsburgh called Hollywood of the East?
As of recently, Pittsburgh has been getting a lot of major films to come there and film there. I know Batman was filmed in Pittsburgh. I don't know which one, but that was a huge deal for us. It's like Perks of Being a Wallflower or something was filmed there. So recently there's been a lot of big filmmakers that have came into the city and started filming around town. And that's been really neat for our city. And it's been cool to witness too.
What would you say you do on a normal weekend in Pittsburgh? Like, say if you don't go to the city, what's it like outside the city in the suburbs?
The suburbs, in the South Hills, where my dad grew up and where I grew up, not really much to do. We have Century 3 Mall, which used to be a pretty big mall in the area. Recently it's downsized, not really much in there left, but we'll go to the mall, hang out with friends at our local high school there, and just play sports, outside a lot. In the summertime, we have, a pool that we'll swim in. We have 80 acres out in Jefferson Hills, which we just use just to mess around on, hunt, ride ATVs, whatnot. So that's pretty much what we do down there. Now for the North Hills, which is where I spent most of my life, is where most of my friends are from. We have Ross Park Mall, which is a huge mall, very busy all the time, that we'll go to, spend a lot of time there. A couple of my friends work at Wildwood Highlands, which is like this, they have like go-karts, mini golf, and stuff. That's kind of for younger people, but we still go there and mess around with the go-karts all the time. And pretty much we go to North Park a lot. We have a huge park in the North Hills, and it has a lake. And the lake is very cool. We do a lot of kayaking on the lake, a lot of running around it. And pretty much you can just walk the trails, ride bikes, and we spend a lot of time in North Park.
Some events that I've seen that I saw that were around Pittsburgh, like the Pittsburgh Marathon and the Pittsburgh Pride Fest. Have you ever participated in any of those, and what would they be like?
I've not participated in the Pittsburgh Pride Fest, but I have participated in the marathon. I ran the half last year, and I have also volunteered for the marathon. My friends and I will go and give water to the runners. And in return, like, Pittsburgh does this really cool thing where, like, all the volunteers for the marathon will get Pirates tickets. So I have participated in the Pittsburgh Marathon.
Okay. So now that you live in Canton, Ohio, would you say that you like Canton more or Pittsburgh more, as in like city life or things to do?
I would absolutely say I love Pittsburgh way more than Canton. There's really not much to do here. I haven't really expanded my horizon to really check out Canton that much. I'm sure there are things to do around here, but not really anything in comparison to Pittsburgh. It's just a bigger city, more things to do around there.
Do you plan on living in Pittsburgh after you graduate?
I've thought about it more and more, especially with my friends from high school. We have always talked about, I want to get out of Pittsburgh or the North Allegheny bubble, which is where we're from. But looking back at it more and more, I absolutely love the city and where I'm from. So I would love to go back there and have a job. But at the same time, I think I would also like to travel and start a career somewhere else, wherever that takes me.
So when we met, you talked about how you've traveled. What are some of the places you've traveled to, and give me some experiences that you've had?
So I've been lucky enough to travel a lot. Being so young, I've been to 32 states already, and I'm gonna probably close out 50 by the time I'm, 25 or so is the goal. But I've also had the ability to go overseas into Europe. I've traveled into the Caribbean. I've been to St. Croix, Jamaica, Dominican Republic. But over in Europe was really neat. We took my great-grandmother back to Scotland, which is where she was born. So that was a really neat experience. I went to Spain with my Spanish class over one summer. We went there for 5 weeks. We went to France with my parents, Germany. Those were just really neat experiences for me, being young. But not so much young where I don't remember it, but I was young enough to know, where I was and how it was a good learning experience, especially France. France and Spain were good learning experiences for me. I took French and Spanish in high school, so getting the ability to use and starting to understand the different languages were really neat for me.
Would you say that you like to travel, or do you kind of like to stay at home? Was it a forced travel, or were you all for it?
I'm all for traveling. Any young person I'd even get the chance to meet, I'd always like to tell them about my travels and try to encourage them to travel. I really encourage traveling young and getting to know the outside world and not staying in where you're from, to just broaden your horizon about different people and their views.
Okay, so I know that you talk about you have an Arizona house, and then you talk about how your parents go there. So what's it like also having another house in Arizona, which is halfway across the country in a completely different kind of zone? It's a lot different weather. What's it like out in the desert in Arizona?
So yeah, I've lived in Arizona part-time since 6th grade. Is when we bought our house out there. And I absolutely love it out there. It's a lot warmer than back here, which is what I like about it. But living out there is definitely a lot different than living out here. Just like I said before, being from Pittsburgh, there's a little bit of a different way that we talk coming from Pittsburgh and then going out there. There was a little bit of a time where we would go out to places and ask for stuff, and they wouldn't understand us, believe it or not, and we speak the same language, but just being from different areas. And it's crazy to see that, but it's a really neat place to see, especially being from the valley of Arizona, near Phoenix. We have a house in Scottsdale, which is in Paradise Valley, and it can be, 115 there in the summertime, and you can go into the shade and it's 100, and then you go there in the winter for a Christmas break or something, and it's 75, 80 degrees in the valley, and then you can go up north to Flagstaff, which is up in the mountains, and there's, 10 inches of snow on the ground. So I really like Arizona in the fact that you can pretty much get any weather you want. The only difference is from Pittsburgh to Arizona is you don't get to see the leaves change, which is a big thing of Pittsburgh and the Northeast that I like compared to Arizona. But Arizona overall, it's very cool to live there and grow up there.
Okay, so I know you said that your final two choices of college were Arizona State and Malone. So like, what was the big factor for choosing Malone compared to Arizona State?
Malone, I came here for baseball, to play baseball here. That was really the big factor. At the same time, I also wanted to stay close to home here, to be close to my dad and my parents. My mom still lives here. She's not here so much now. She lives more in Arizona, but I wanted to stay close to home and still be close with my high school friends because, I was getting ready to go to college. My mom was like, I have friends who had kids go to college and they always talk about how their kids never really come home and, you're going to meet so many people at college. But the bond that I have with my friends back from high school and from my hometown, I just didn't want to leave and go all the way across the country and be away from them, even though I would technically still be considered at home at Arizona State. But the main reason was baseball. I did want to play baseball in college, and I don't think I would be offered the opportunity to play at Arizona State.
Okay, so you said that you were a business administration major, and I know from talking to you a lot that your mom was an accountant. So like, what made you choose business as the major you wanted to do? Or I know you're also sports management too. So what made you choose like business and sports management?
So I came in my first semester as strictly just a sports management major. But I realized that field is very competitive for getting a job after college. So I thought I would expand my views and possibilities of getting a job after college and getting a business administration major, which I thought would make me stand out a little bit more in a field of business. I really like business. My mom, like you said, was an accountant. My stepdad is a regional sales manager for PPG, which is a big company back in Pittsburgh and actually like across the country or internationally. So business is something I've always really been interested in, and sports management really helps me with what I want to do in business because I would like to one day own my own business within a sports field or going and working at a front office job for a sports organization. So that's pretty much why I chose to pick up my business administration major.
Why does sports play such a big part in your life? Like, I know you obviously came in for baseball, but like, did you grow up just always being around sports, or is it just something that you love?
Yeah, so my parents weren't athletes at all growing up, but of course I did pretty much what every other little kid does. I played t-ball, and I just absolutely loved playing any sport. I played everything imaginable growing up, t-ball, football, soccer, just absolutely everything. And I just loved playing sports. So my parents weren't big into it, but as they saw me growing a passion for it, they kind of got into it as well. So we all kind of grew together as a sports family. And so yeah, sports has played a major role in my life, and I would say I pretty much grew up with it.
Have you ever tried hockey?
I have tried hockey. I can't skate that well. So I never played organized hockey, but my friends and I back home play a lot of deck hockey, which is grown around our area a lot. We have a lot of deck hockey rinks that you can go to. So I've played a lot of deck hockey, and in the wintertime, if it gets cold enough, we do play pond hockey. And again, I can't really skate that well, so I don't really mess with hockey that much.
So, what made you choose? I know you ran track, or actually, just talk about what track was like in high school for you. Like, since you also played baseball, why was track such a big part of your life?
So, in ninth grade, I ran cross country, and that was not fun at all. I really don't know why I chose to do it, but I got in such great shape from running every single day, and I kind of grew this passion for running competitively. Like nothing ever beat like race day and racing against a bunch of kids, and so I grew this passion for running. And every year in high school, I tried out for baseball, and I was cut every single year from my high school baseball team, except for my sophomore year. And my freshman year, when I got cut from baseball, I didn't do track and field, so I kind of lost everything from running. Didn't really even look at doing track and field my freshman year because our cross-country coach is our track coach, and he hated me at the time because I used to sit in the woods in cross-country and just not run at all. But like I said, my sophomore year, I went out for baseball and I made the team and I played. So like that was a big thing for me. I was really excited about that. Coming back my junior year, I got cut again from the baseball team, and I was thinking, well, I want to do something in the spring to keep me busy. So I went to my old cross-country coach, and I was like, hey, I would love to try track. And he was like, I'm going to give you an opportunity to run, but you have to promise me that you're going to work hard. And from that point on, I just worked my butt off in track, and it became a really big thing for me. I was pretty decent my first year, never really did anything to train or like, I didn't even know anything about track, but I went out, was top 10 in points, scored my junior year, made it to WPIAL in the individual finals. I won a WPIAL team championship, which was really cool. That was our second team championship in a row. And track just kept growing from there. So senior year, I was faced with the opportunity to play team baseball or to run track, and I chose to do track. And my senior year, I went out and had to be a leader on the track team, and we won our third WPIAL team championship in a row, which hadn't been done since 1940 within the state of Pennsylvania. I also was top 3 in points scored that year for my team, running the 400, the 4x4, and the high jump were my main events. And track just kept growing from there. My track coach is one of the greatest coaches I've had, a really nice guy, gave me opportunities and got me opportunities to run at the next level at Division II and Division I. But I had to make a choice to run track or play baseball in college because I knew I wanted to play a sport. But at that point, I was faced with, do I want to run track, a sport that I only did competitively for 2 years, or do I want to play baseball, a sport that has given me so much, tough times, but I've played it my entire life. So when it came down to my choice, I wanted to play baseball. But yeah, track played a big point in my life.
Um, so obviously you play baseball here at Malone, and like since you got cut, I know that your high school they graduate 1,400 kids, and so like obviously that's a lot of kids to choose from, and so I can see how it's tough to make the baseball team. So like, what was it like with such a big graduating class, and then coming to like a school that's almost the same size? Well, Malone, well, with your enrollment being around 1,400 kids and Malone only having around 2,000 students, what's it like? Like, does it feel like any different than high school and college, or is it a big change for you?
So, yeah, I came from a large high school where just our enrollment between 11th and 12th is 1,400. I graduated with 735 kids. So you take, ninth grade through 12th grade, and, you're looking at 2,800 to 3,000 students. But being at Malone, it's just more of a college feel. The classes are smaller here than they were in high school, but you can just tell that this is like there was really a big difference that I could tell when I came here. But that's a real reason why I chose here too, that I liked, is the small class sizes and your ability to get to know your professors on a first name basis, opposed to going to a big school like Arizona State, where in some of your classes, you don't even see your teacher and they don't even know your name. You're more of a number. But yeah, your teachers here and your professors, like, they know your name. And believe it or not, coming from a big school where I'm from, where in some of my classes we had 40, 45 students in a class, teachers wouldn't get to know your name until, the third or fourth week of school, where here they know it real fast. So there was a different feel between high school and college. Really not that big of a difference, but you could definitely recognize the college aspect of here over my high school.
Okay, so we kind of touched on baseball a little bit, but I know that baseball plays a big part in your life, as you chose here to come to college. You're a big Pirates fan, and like I know you're always talking about baseball and you work really hard at it. So like, what drives you in baseball? Like, what's your favorite thing about it?
What drives me in baseball is the fact that, especially like getting into competitive baseball, always coming in as a younger age group and playing with older guys. That's been pretty much my entire baseball career. Ever since I started, I was always a younger kid playing in an older age group because of my talents. But once you get into high school and college, you're a freshman and you're playing with kids 4 years older than you or 5 years older than you. The part that drives me is I want to be the best, and I want to be better than the older kids or kids even my age that might be better than me. Because in baseball, I feel like there's always somebody better than you, and that's pretty much what drives me, is to be the best, because I want to make it to the next level possible, no matter what level I was at. Younger, I wanted to make it to middle school. When I was playing middle school, I wanted to make it to high school, and then high school, I wanted to make it to college. So now being in college, the goal is to get drafted or signed at the next level, and you have to have an amazing amount of drive to get to that level.
I know like some big athletes people know, like Michael Jordan obviously got cut from his high school basketball team, and then now, he's the greatest player of all time in basketball. And I looked up some players that were cut from their high school baseball team, and one of them, Mark Burley, actually got cut twice. So, like, do you use these guys as inspiration? Like, even if they didn't make it in high school, there's always still a chance that you can go pro.
Yeah, that's the real cool thing about baseball is, you can be cut and still make it to the next level. For example, like Mark Burley, like you said, and having the title of baseball, college baseball, having a title of being Division I or Division III, people always think that plays like a big factor, like, oh, he's Division I, he's going to automatically get drafted after 3 years or 4 years in college. But you see players these days getting drafted out of Division III schools. And so really, as long as you get the opportunity to play in college, you have a pretty good chance of getting signed or drafted and playing at the next level, no matter what happened in high school, because you're not really seeing a lot of high school kids getting drafted these days. So, I mean, it's really all about making it to the college level and doing what you can do there and trying to get recognized from that point.
So you obviously know, like, you have the good body type for pitcher. You're left-handed and you're around like 6'4", 6'5". So like, do you think like this was like a blessing, or do you think that like it's just like it'll help you out in a big way?
I mean, it's yet to be seen if it's a blessing or not. I mean, being tall is just in the family, and left-handed, I have no clue where that came from. Neither of my parents are left-handed. I think my uncles, some of them might be. But yeah, being tall and left-handed is really a great thing for me, and I realize the potential that I have. But it's all about putting all the little pieces perfectly. I need to put like all the pieces to the puzzle together, and then I will eventually, hopefully, that'll help me, especially with my body size.
So, you traveled and played baseball. Where were some of the places that you traveled and played?
So, growing up, I played in 3 different leagues. I played for IFPAA, which is like a local league, McCandless Baseball League, and BMP, which are like the 3 local leagues around my area. And I have friends who played for all 3 of those leagues. And 2 years for McCandless, there was an opportunity where we hosted a team from Japan, and they came over and we would host one of their kids for a week, and we would play them throughout the week, just practice with them. It was a really cool experience. So we got to host them 1 year, and then the next year we got to go over to Japan and play with them, and they host us. So that goes back to my thing with traveling is I played in a different league, but McCandless was doing this thing where it was an opportunity to travel and meet new people. So I jumped on that immediately, and Japan is a place that I've always wanted to travel to, so I really wanted to take advantage of that. And then also, when I got into high school, playing summer ball, my baseball coach, his son is really talented, and his son's travel team had the opportunity to go down to the Dominican Republic and play baseball against some of their kids. So I went on that trip to the Dominican Republic to play baseball down there. And baseball being what it is in that part of the world, it's just such a big deal for them. Like, all they do is play baseball. So I wanted to see what it was like to go and play with some of those kids, especially with how talented they are and how many MLB players that they've produced. So going down there and playing in the Dominican Republic was really cool. It was a really fun time.
So what's your experience been so far as a freshman going to Malone, as you've already been through fall ball, and then obviously the Kent State games, and like then you have the morning workouts? So is this like a big difference to you, or is this just like kind of like going through the motion now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big difference. Never playing high school, I never really had like the practice aspect of baseball. I would always just have like summer baseball, and it'd just be like, you'd practice 1 day a week. But coming here to Malone, we have a lot of talented players, a lot of older guys to look up to, where you get a lot of good tips and pointers from them, and just watching them perform at their level that they do is a really neat thing to see. And then also coming in with very talented guys from my age group, like Clyde Dioder and Braun Miller. Those guys are very talented for being my age, and they've helped me a lot in what I'm trying to get to and perform at a high level like they are. So getting that kind of teammate aspect of things is different, that what I'm not used to getting. The practice is tough at times. Fall ball was a really good learning experience, my first experience to, pitch against college level hitters, and seeing what that's like. And the coaches just, pushing us to our limits to see what we could do in the fall with our miles, and playing against each other in the red and blue series. That got really competitive. And then as winter started to simmer down a little bit, we got into our morning lifting, which was a good time. We got, stronger and better through that experience with the things that we did. There wasn't so much of a baseball part to it where we would be throwing every day, but the lifting part of it really helped us. And then coming back from our winter break, we got into our morning baseball workouts, which were technically in season, and we have practices at 5 in the morning. That was extremely rough. Not fun at all. But in the beginning of it, like the first week, you were kind of like all for it, and waking up at 5 a.m. really wasn't that bad. And then kind of, in the middle of it, it just became a routine, and you just fell into it. So people, the upperclassmen always were like, 5 a.m.s are really tough, and it's never really fun. And I see what they're coming from, but at the same time, you fall into your routine. And, as tough as it may be, it helped us a lot as a program and as players. And I think a lot of us got better from it. And then especially towards the end, where we're getting ready for our trip to Arizona, the 5 a.m.s just kind of started flying by. And it was like we had 17 days left, and then the next day, we're on a plane out to Arizona. And so practice and coming here for different aspects have been very different from summer ball.
So what was Arizona like
Uh,
out there?
Well, that was my first college appearance out in Arizona. That was really cool for me. I was really nervous for my first appearance, but getting your first college experience of pitching in a game out of the way really helped, especially now with how I'm doing. And for a lot of the younger guys too, their first college at-bats or pitching appearances, they went rough for a little bit, but once they got, in the zone and they realized, hey, it's just like any other day, what we've been doing, they kind of locked in. And so Arizona was a really good time bonding with the team for, 10 days. Sleeping together was a little rough. Some people take the bed or snore a little loud, but being together with a team for that long, you all really just bond really close, and really helped us as a team.
So I know being like growing up in the same hall as you and like being in your room a lot, your favorite type of music is obviously rap. And some Pittsburgh rappers that I know are like Wiz Khalifa and Mac Miller. And so like what do you think that growing up in Pittsburgh gave a big part in your experiences with like rap music and stuff? Like, is that why you like that genre of music?
So I pretty much got into rap because of my dad. Uh, he always played NWA growing up, so I knew rap music growing up, and then I didn't really know like any like Pittsburgh-based rappers. Growing up, I really knew like Eminem and NWA and 50 Cent and just people like that. And so that's who I grew up with. And then, as I got older, I would listen to, different people, and I just fell into liking rap. And then Wiz Khalifa, I found him when he released his first mixtape. And I was like, oh, he's from Pittsburgh. Like, I really support him. Like, he's a cool guy. And eventually, Wiz blew up when he released Black and Yellow, and that was pretty much the entire city anthem. I mean, everybody listened to that song and was like, oh, Pittsburgh, Black and Yellow, Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, whatever they wanted to affiliate it with, it was affiliated with the city. So that really got me into Wiz Khalifa. And then I eventually heard of Mac Miller when he released Kids. That was his first mixtape. And I was like, oh, this guy, he's just like this little white rapper from Pittsburgh. And I really connected with that. I thought he was a really cool guy. And I really like his music and what he's done for our city as well. Like, their music has like done stuff for our city, because like people you can talk to about rap and you're like, oh, I'm from Pittsburgh, and they're like, oh, so you listen to Wiz Khalifa and Mac Miller. So yeah, rap's played an influence in my life, and then growing up in Pittsburgh with them.
Do you know any of them? Like, do you know the high schools they went to? Like, do they come around Pittsburgh a lot? Like, do you ever just see them casually walking around Pittsburgh, or they just like kind of like stay out of the way and like kind of like low key?
Yeah, so Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa both went to the same high school. They went to Taylor Alderdice High School, which is Pittsburgh public school. It's in the city. But they do come around the city, and you will see them every now and again. I've seen them in airports, the Pittsburgh airport, but they really come out to a lot of high school events. I know Wiz and his like crew and like people that he hangs out with come to a lot of high school sporting events. I've seen them at football games, basketball they show out to a lot, and Mac Miller too. I've seen Mac Miller in Panera. Like, I ordered right behind him, and I was like, holy cow, that's Mac Miller. So, they're nice guys, and they do come out to local stuff, and you will see them a lot. I know Wiz Khalifa performed at Upper St. Clair, which is a high school near me. He performed at their prom when he was just getting bigger, but like, they do come out to local events, and you will see them around town every now and again.
That's basically all I have. It's like, it's at 50 minutes. You think that's good?
Yeah, that's good.
You think so? I don't really know what else to do. So should I just press stop?
Yeah, you press the red button.
Well, I don't want to press stop and like get a raise.
No, just press the red button.